Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a reporting dashboard in HubSpot for your handoffs. And one of the big advantages here is we're going to be able to get everybody on the same page with what we're doing in terms of performance in our handoff, how quickly are we getting folks through and engaging in the next stage of the journey, but also what data is missing, what data do we need to make sure we have a system for capturing if things are going wrong in our handoffs. So the first thing to look at is this time to kickoff scheduled report. This is looking at the time between when a deal is closed in our sales pipeline and when the onboarding kickoff call is booked. We're using onboarding kickoff here. You could use a different lifecycle event as the sort of start of your onboarding process or the thing that you're measuring against. So let's take a look at how we built this report. Here we have bars and a line. The bars show the average number of days for deals that are closed in a specific month. The line shows the maximum number of days for a deal that was closed in a specific month to schedule their kickoff call. So let's click in and we will take a look at how we actually built this. So here we have the fields that we're using. We're using close date. This is a company-based report. We're using the close date and separating it out by month, so we get each individual month as an individual bar. We're using the average of days to onboarding kickoff booked. I'll show you how to calculate that particular property in just a second, and then the max of days to onboarding kickoff booked. So it's a relatively simple graph. We're using this combination chart type, but the big thing here is that days to onboarding kickoff booked property, which we're using both a calculated property and a workflow to set that up. So let's take a look at the workflow that we're using. Relatively simple workflow, but this is going to let us set a date stamp of onboarding kickoff booked, which is actually not the property that we're using on the graph, but is one of the inputs to that calculated property. But we're going to trigger this workflow when we have a deal associated to an engagement, because this is assuming we're using HubSpot's meeting booking tool. But when we have a meeting name that is equal to onboarding kickoff. You could also, if you have different variations of your onboarding kickoff meeting, you could use meeting name includes or something like that, meeting name contains. If you, let's say you have onboarding kickoff with Sam, onboarding kickoff with Kate, you could just have a contains on onboarding kickoff. So when this event happens, we are setting the date stamp of this company property, onboarding kickoff booked, to the date of the step. Then what we're doing is we have another property, which is this days to onboarding kickoff booked, which is a calculated property, which is taking the date onboarding kickoff booked property minus today's date, minus the close date of the account. And that will give you a number of days, which you can then use in this days to onboarding kickoff booked field to give you a calculated number of days that you have an average and a max for each month that a deal closes. And this way, ideally, you can say, well, we're getting better in general over time at reducing the amount of time it takes to get to a kickoff call booked. And maybe let's say we are setting a goal of 5 days. In general, we are reaching that goal. We hit it in December. We're just above it in January. We're below it in February, and we're just above it in March. So this graph is a good way to take a look at that sort of high level view of how we're doing in a handoff. The other reports in this dashboard for handoffs, missing information reports. And all we're doing here, we have one for our sales pipeline and one for our onboarding pipeline. All we're doing is taking the required fields that we have to sort of move a deal or move an object to the next stage in the journey, and we're just displaying the value for each of those required properties. You can see here that for the most part, we have those required properties filled out, but this one here, SVA, is missing a value for existing solution. Wagner is missing for migration required, and MCM is also missing for migration required. You can then filter to the specific pipelines, filter to the dates. The other thing that you can do is filter to when there is only include deals or accounts here that have a missing value, right? So that in that way, you can see only the ones that we need to go and edit. And once we update that value so that there is a value for a required property, it will drop off the report. And you should ideally have nothing visible in this report, because that means you're not missing any information in your handoffs. Hopefully this is helpful. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks so much.